In the chaos of World War II, survival meant more than just dodging bullets. It meant outsmarting hunger, freezing winds, disease, and sheer exhaustion. Soldiers were dropped into foreign lands with limited supplies, unpredictable weather, and no guarantee of rescue. But the secret to staying alive wasn't always brute strength or fancy equipment. It was creativity. Tiny, improvised tricks, born from desperation, that quietly made the difference between life and death. And here's the fascinating part. Many of those same wartime survival tricks still work today, for campers, survivalists, or anyone who values self-reliance. During the war, necessity became the mother of invention. With limited access to modern tools or medicine, soldiers had to think. They turned ordinary objects, a tin can, a bar of soap, a scrap of cloth, into lifelines. These were not life hacks for convenience. They were raw, clever solutions under the most brutal conditions imaginable. And when you hear them now, you'll realize these old ideas still have the power to save lives, even in our modern world. One of the most feared enemies on the front wasn't enemy fire. It was infection. Trench foot, dysentery, and typhus killed more men than bullets did. To fight back, soldiers were issued carbolic soap, a dark red bar with a strong, sharp smell. Made with phenol, it could kill bacteria on contact. Men didn't just wash their hands with it. They used it to clean wounds, sterilize knives, and disinfect water containers. Losing a single bar could mean weeks of sickness or death. That same concept lives on today in antibacterial soaps and hospital disinfectants. A small bar of soap that quietly saved thousands of lives. Imagine this. You're deep in enemy territory, starving, freezing, and unable to light a fire without giving away your position. What do? Soldiers took an empty tin can, punched small holes along the sides, and placed a candle inside. The metal trapped and reflected the heat, enough to warm rations, boil a cup of water, or dry a pair of socks. It produced almost no smoke, keeping their position hidden. Simple, silent, and effective. This little trick became a favorite among soldiers from the Arctic to the Pacific. Even today, bushcrafters use this same method to make a candle stove in emergencies. Coffee wasn't just caffeine during the war. It was comfort, a taste of home, a few minutes of humanity in hell. Supplies were limited, so soldiers reused coffee grounds again and again, sometimes mixing in roasted barley or chicory to stretch it further. The result wasn't always tasty, but it was warm. Commanders noticed something. A soldier with a cup of coffee was calmer, more focused, and more willing to fight another day. It became clear. Morale was as powerful as any weapon. Clean water was rare on the front lines. Rivers were muddy, wells were contaminated. So soldiers improvised. They crumbled dense, dark bread into a cloth, poured dirty water through it, and let it drip into a tin. The bread caught dirt and sediment, making the water clearer before boiling. It didn't make it perfectly safe, but it made it drinkable enough to survive. This primitive filtration method is still used in survival training. The idea of using a porous organic layer to trap impurities before purification. In war, cigarettes weren't just for smoking, they were currency. Even non-smokers carried them. One cigarette could buy food, medicine, or information from locals in occupied zones. And sometimes, offering one to an enemy soldier or prisoner could buy seconds of distraction, enough to escape or survive. Veterans later admitted that a single cigarette could sometimes be more valuable than a bullet. Every soldier carried a small sewing kit, often hidden in their uniform lining. It wasn't just for vanity, it was for survival. A ripped coat in winter could mean frostbite. A torn mosquito net in the jungle could mean malaria. With a few stitches, soldiers mended clothes, boots, even gear straps. Some even used the needle and thread to fish or suture small wounds in emergencies. Tiny, silent, and forgotten, but it saved countless lives. When matches got damp and lighters ran out, soldiers used a trick learned from farmers and sailors. They soaked strips of cloth in engine oil, fat, or wax, then stored them in tins. Even in rain, the cloth would catch a spark and burn long enough to light wet wood. It was smoky, smelly, and dirty, but it worked. On the frozen front lines of Russia, that tiny flame meant warmth and survival. Salt wasn't just seasoning during the war, it was a multi-tool. Soldiers used it to preserve meat and fish caught in the field, rub it into leather to prevent mold, and even pack it into their boots overnight to draw out moisture. A handful of salt could extend the life of food, gear, and health. In humid jungles like the Pacific Front, it was more valuable than gold. Sometimes the smallest comforts kept men sane. When uniform buttons popped off, often at the worst moments, soldiers improvised. They rolled wet bread into a small ball, flattened it, poked 2 holes through the center, and let it dry in the sun. Once hardened, it worked just like a button, strong enough to last days or weeks. It sounds laughable now, but in a world falling apart, even a bread button brought a sense of normalcy. Perhaps the cleverest survival trick of all came disguised as fun. Some decks of playing cards were special issue, sent by intelligence agencies to POW camps. When dampened and peeled apart, the cards revealed hidden sections of escape maps printed inside. Captured soldiers used them to navigate enemy territory and find their way home. A deck of cards that could save your life. What makes these methods brilliant isn't just their cleverness, it's the mindset behind them. World War II soldiers didn't have endless gear or supplies. They had to innovate. With a few simple tools, they created solutions still used by survivalists today. The tin can stove, the fat-soaked cloth fire starter, the multi-purpose salt, all of it shows that resourcefulness is humanity's greatest weapon. Technology changes, but the human instinct to adapt, that never fades. The same candle stove that warmed a soldier in 1944 can still heat a camper's meal in 2025. The same bread filter could save someone after a natural disaster. History is full of grand battles and heroic names, but sometimes it's the quiet inventions, the ones no one writes about, that truly shaped survival. Because in the end, survival isn't about luck or strength, it's about ingenuity, adaptability, and the will to keep going, even with nothing left. If you found these forgotten wartime survival tricks as fascinating as I did, make sure to subscribe and share this story with someone who loves history as much as you do. After all, the best lessons from the past are still waiting to be used.